To focus on the people who make your office a horror show. Scary coworkers and spooky bosses can make your work life miserable. Are there things that we can do to minimize the impact folks like this have? Mary Abijay is an expert on workplace issues, president and co-founder of the Career Stone Group. She's part of our Friday Focus on You rotation, and it's great having you here.
You know, your introduction makes me want to do my horror laugh, may I? So bosses and coworkers, difficult ones, can be a horror show. They can make your life miserable.
What are the types of complaints that are most common? Is it interpersonal stuff like fingernail clipping and you know, crumbs?
Oh, we absolutely hear that. Like people who have really poor office etiquette or just like are doing like the food and the smells. But really the things we hear the most about are behavioral things.
Right.
Things are how we behave with other people. And the key for difficult people is to understand that you can't change somebody else. So you have to really learn how to self-manage yourself and manage your interactions so that you're proactive and not reactive.
So if it's the workplace type of stuff, are we talking about people who are
talking about shouters, we're talking about hyper-competitive
loud
people.
voice in a close environment.
Yes, or very much like shouting, like I am going to shout at you, or people who are hyper-competitive, or people who are slackers, or people who we call the fraudsters, who like pretend they're doing everything, but they really don't do anything. We're talking about people whose behavior has a negative impact on you and the workplace.
So if you're part of a team and your teammates are not doing their part of the project or the task, right, what have you, it reflects on you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
No one wants that, particularly the closer we get to annual review time.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is, we go in the workplace, and while we can't control their people, their behavior has impact on us. And so when people are behaving inappropriately or in ways that make us feel anxious, stressed, angry, resentful, then that's a difficult person. And it's also key to understand that what's difficult for you may not be difficult for me. So part of what you have to do is understand your own triggers. Like for me, what's difficult are people who are nitpicky, like the nitpicker. That drives me crazy. That may not drive you crazy. So it's about understanding what's impacting you and ways that you can manage it.
When those people come on, I put my headsets on and pretend not to see them. That's my strategy. Is that going to work for me long term?
If it works for you long term, so here's the thing. People are going to hate this. Y'all are going to hate this. But when you have a difficult person, you only have three choices. You can confront the behavior and the person, you can learn to cope with the behavior or the person, or you can quit the engagement, right? You can walk away, quit the job, or walk away. Those are your only three choices for good mental health.
Phone lines open as we talk this Friday with Mary Abijay. She's our workplace expert. I want to know from you, is there a workplace issue dealing with a coworker? And in a moment we're going to segue and talk about the spooky bosses we referenced at the outset. So if there's an issue of this type that you're dealing with at the office right now, join the conversation, tell us what it is, and we'll bat around some suggestions on how you might cope going forward with that, through that lens of confront, cope, or quit. Phone lines open, 703-387-1020, the number here. Grab an open line now, please. We had some great calls last segment. Let's get some great calls this segment as well. 703-387-1020, the number here. In environments where it's a team working on a project or what have you, the issue of, and which we referenced, doing your part, carrying your share of the burden. There's also the thing of taking outsized credit when things go well, and blame shifting when things go south. Absolutely.
And so those can be difficult behaviors. So if you're a team member, you have a couple of choices. If you decide that you want to cope with it, then you just cope with it. You accept it. And I don't mean you become a lapdog, but you then try to, first of all, you don't take it personally, right? So if you're going to cope with something, you don't take it personally. You realize that is Bruce, that's how he operates, and you figure out a way to operate around that behavior that makes, so in that case, it might be about tooting your own horn. If you're going to confront, you have to be very clear about what you're going to ask for, because you are confronting the behavior, not the person. That's very important to separate the behavior from the person. So if you're going around taking all the credit for something the team has done, and I choose to confront you, I'm going to plan it's called a difficult conversation. I'm going to plan it very carefully, and I'm going to talk about your behavior, not your intention, and how it's impacting the team and myself, and I'm going to request a different behavior.
Are you going to say, hey, Sally, let's grab a cup of coffee?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm going to think about this conversation beforehand. I'm going to say, hey, Sally, let's have a conversation. And then I will say something like, so, you know, when you go around taking credit for the team, I understand it's important and you're trying to promote us all. However, the impact on us is X, Y, Z. And we'd prefer A, B, C.
Gotcha. We'll talk about bosses in a moment, but first let's go to line 1. Maria in Arlington, welcome. You're on the air. What's your question or a thought on this topic?
I was talking about teachers and school settings.
Okay.
Teachers usually work with assistants. Sometimes these teachers are so abusive, not only verbally but also psychologically. And the institutions, the school administrators never take the side of the person that's being abused. They always take the side of the person who has a higher rank. And for some people, it's impossible to work in that condition. And what I don't think they realize is how that impacts on the children and the whole process of learning of the children. When a person who's working with an abusive teacher has to be stressed out all the time.
Maria, only because of the clock. Only because of the clock. Let me jump in. She raised. I don't know how many of us think of the school environment in the way she's described it, and that maybe a feature of her particular whatever.
Yeah, so what needs to happen here, if I understood your question correctly, you have teachers who are being abusive and it's impacting the learning of the students. So I would recommend a couple of things. First of all, you should, this is where you're going to have strength in numbers. So if you can galvanize a few parents to come and talk to the teacher first of all, and really be specific about the behaviors that are not working, and if you don't get results there, then you have to talk to the administration. Now this is a problem in organizational life where a lot of organizational leaders don't address bad behavior or difficult behavior, and that is killer for morale, it's killer for organizational productivity, and in the case of this woman's caller, it's bad for the students.
Luana in Seabrook, next as we pick up on line 2. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning. What do you do if you have a supervisor who has Napoleonic syndrome, bully, and walks around every morning gathering ideas from all the workers, and then takes those ideas back to the chief of your department, takes his ideas, and then takes credit for all the work that is being done.
Getting us into the spooky boss territory.
This is one of the most difficult ones. Luann, is that your name? Is one of the most difficult things to manage because the boss, staff relationship is very difficult. So the first thing I would say with a bully boss is understand that's who they are, right? You're not going to change them. So you've got to almost, you may not like this, but you've got to almost put on your golden shield when you deal with it, right? Because that is what turns them on. They're not going to change. That being said, you have 2 other choices in order for taking credit. One is you have to do something called shameless self-promotion, which is you and your coworkers have to talk about your accomplishments, right? And you have to find a way to let other people know what you've accomplished. And the third thing that you could do, well, there's a fourth thing. You could quit your job if it gets that bad, but I know that's difficult for many people. Right. You could actually have a conversation with the boss. It is not easy to do, but if you get a coach or someone can help you through that, that's your other option. But really, it's one of the most difficult ways. It's one of the most difficult situations.
We only have a few seconds left. Right up there with the work itself and salary and things like, is the office close to work or is it far away? These issues are big in the mix of how people view their work in its totality.
That's exactly right. Bosses and managers are still the #1 reason why people stay or leave an organization. Wow. And the corporate culture and climate is like the #2 reason.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface. I know we had another caller, Billy, and we're just not going to be able to get to Billy today because of time constraints, but we're going to bring this topic back. I feel like this is a really good one. We'll bring this one back soon as we continue to talk with Mary Abijay, part of our rotation. She's with the Career Stone Group, and she's part of our Friday Focus on You rotation. Thank you, Mary.
Happy Halloween.
Back with more right after this. Thank you.